Shavua Tov, anti-Semitism is in this week's Parsha. But before we dig into that, the psalmist tells us, hope unto the Lord, strengthen your heart, and hope unto the Lord. Why does it repeat hope unto the Lord twice? Because we may hope unto the Lord, but things may fail. We may be tempted then to give up the fight. So the psalmist continues, strengthen your heart and hope unto the Lord. Persevere. That is the name of the game, especially in the battle against anti-Semitism. Where is anti-Semitism in the Parsha? The story of Isaac and the wells. And I have to tell you there's good news, because this story will also give us a solution, a powerful solution, to anti-Semitism. The story is as follows. Isaac is, because of a famine, living at the land of the Philistines, where there is more fertility, and the king of the Philistines is a title, a man named Amalek. And while Isaac is there, Amalek warns his people, don't harm this man and his wife. If he's warning them not to harm this man and his wife, it indicates that his people there would like to. So they already hate Isaac because he's poor. Rabbi Beryl Wine says the scariest sign you can see in a restaurant is the one in the bathroom that says employees must wash their hands before handling food. Because if they're putting up a sign, it means that there's a problem with that. So here too, if Avimelech is telling his people, don't harm this guy Isaac and his wife, that means that they want to. There's anti-Semitism there. But then Isaac becomes prosperous, and then Avimelech himself joins in with the anti-Semitism, and he says, you get out of here, you're too rich for us. And so Isaac withdraws, and he digs a well. This is something that Isaac does. Abraham had dug wells, and the Philistines, these same Philistines, had filled up and blocked up those wells. So Isaac withdraws, and he now digs a well, and they find water, and the Philistines come and they say, it's ours. The water is ours. So Isaac said, let's call this well Asek, business, because they're confronting us on a business question, who owns the water. He withdraws a little more, digs another well, and this time the Philistines also come and they fight. And he says, I'm going to call this well Sitna, hatred, because I see now that it's not the business, it's the hatred. Says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, this is the way of the anti-Semite. We should understand something fundamental about anti-Semitism. They hate the Jews for no reason. There may be deep psychological reasons, which are probably also in the Parsha with the story of Esav, but there is no logical reason that they hate us. They just hate us, and they need an excuse. Because if you hate someone, it's kind of hard to admit to yourself that because of who they are, I want to kill them. You need to have something of a justification. So they'll come up with an argument. Something the Jews did wrong, supposedly. Asek, says Isaac, business. They'll come and they'll argue and they'll justify it. It's because the water is ours. Really, it was ours, and that's why we're fighting you now. We don't really hate you. But then the next well, they show their true colors, because it doesn't say in the next one that they claimed the water. It just says they came and they fought. And so Isaac gets it. They hate me because they hate me. And therefore there is no concession I could ever possibly make to them that would appease them. And let that be a lesson to us. When the anti-Semite says, I hate the Jews because XYZ, if the Jew would correct XYZ, they would still hate the Jew. There is no concession to be made. There is no territory to be given. There is nothing to be done that will alleviate the anti-Semitism, except for what we're going to learn presently. And, other commentaries point out the fact that the anti-Semite hates unconditionally. For example, they hated Isaac before he became prosperous. They hate the Jew when the Jew is too poor. When he becomes prosperous, they hate him because he's too rich. They hate the Jew because he's too religious or because he's not religious enough. They hate the Jew because he's too nationalistic, or they hate the Jew because he's too much of a peacenik. The people who were attacked on Simchas Torah were on all sides of the political spectrum, including peace-loving people who had welcomed some of those same Palestinians from Gaza into their community to work for them. Those people who then went back and told the Hamas who lives where, who to attack. The anti-Semite is a hater, period. Every excuse they make is just an excuse. And when they can't find an excuse, they'll make one up. It's something that we call the blood libel. I've had the dubious honor of looking on Twitter, and you can see blood libels there left and right. One person posted a page of quotes from the Talmud, showing how much the Jews are plotting against and hate the Gentiles. All of the quotes I looked up, all of them are made up out of thin air, and the rest of them are completely mistranslated. But they look for their excuses. That's the way of anti-Semitism, says Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, that first they will try to give you a justification, but at the end of the day, justification or no, they still hate. So what is the solution to anti-Semitism? The Chafetz Chaim says, it's what Isaac did next. He dug a third well. The third well was a charm. The Philistines didn't come to complain, and Isaac now calls it Rechovot. Why Rechovot? Because it means to expand. I will now be able to multiply and expand in this holy land. At that point, God comes to Isaac and says to him, I am with you, do not be afraid. And then something amazing happens. Avimelech shows up with his general. And Isaac says to him the obvious question, what are you doing here? You hate me. Why did you come? And they said, listen, we see that God is with you. That is the answer to anti-Semitism. When the anti-Semite sees that God is with us. Says Avimelech, God is with you, and besides, I didn't do bad to you. This is a little chutzpahdik tangent. I didn't do anything bad to you. I didn't touch you, right? Thank you for not killing me. That's exactly what Avimelech was saying. And the rabbis in the Midrash, they stress this exact point. They give the parable of a lion who had a bone stuck in its mouth, and a bird comes and pulls out the bone, and the bird says to the lion, aren't you going to give me a reward? And the lion says, reward? You should be grateful I didn't eat your head off. This is what Avimelech, chutzpah. But nonetheless, when Avimelech sees that God is with Isaac, then he changes his song. How did he accomplish this? There is a commandment that men have, a daily commandment called tefillin, to put on tefillin, phylacteries on the arm and on the head. I think that on both levels we can understand Isaac's defeat of anti-Semitism. On the physical level, the tefillin on the hand is symbolizing the actions, the deeds of a man. The Chavetz Chaim says that what did Isaac do to defeat the anti-Semitism? He dug that third well. He hoped unto the Lord, he strengthened his heart, and he hoped unto the Lord. He kept digging and building. And the Hebrew word for a well is a be'er. And we said today in Shul to dig a be'er and to build a be'eri, which is the name of one of the communities that was hit hardest on the Simchat Torah massacre. That is the physical solution. And God sees that Isaac perseveres, and especially the fact that Isaac was redigging the wells that his father Abraham had dug and renaming them with the names that Abraham had used. God says, this is someone I can trust, and I will be with you, Isaac. Be not afraid. When you have God with you, then the nations of the world will sing a different song. So on the physical level, on the level of the tefillin of the arm, Isaac digs and builds and plants, and that is the way to bring God with him. But it's not enough just on the physical level. There's also the tefillin that goes on the head, which is symbolizing the spiritual battle. And other commentaries, such as Rabbeinu Bachye in the Ketava HaKabbalah, they see in this digging of the wells, Isaac waging a spiritual battle. What is in a well? Water. Water is sustenance for physical life. The Torah is compared to water because Torah is sustenance for spiritual life. Abraham, when he dug wells, he dug those wells in order to bring people close to Torah. He gave them physical and spiritual water. He gave those wells names of faith. Beit El, the house of the Lord. Hashem Yera'eh, God will be seen. That was the work of Abraham. He had brought many people close to God, and he had taught them faith and morality. A lot of those people may have drifted aside, and so now Isaac sets his goal to redig those wells, revive those names, bring those people back again. The spiritual perseverance of the Jewish nation. And the spiritual perseverance means Judaism. It means prayer. It means having God's presence with us as we pray daily, as we observe the commandments, the Sabbath, kashrut, all of the rules of the Torah, especially the rules between man and his fellow. When we do those things, then God is really with us. And that's the tefillin on the head, the spiritual element. And about the tefillin on the head, the Torah says at the end of the book of Deuteronomy, that the nations of the world shall see that the name of the Lord is called upon you, and they will fear you. This, say the rabbis, refers to the tefillin on the head. That is where the name of the Lord is called upon you. So when they see that God is with us, they fear us, and they do not attack us. The anti-Semite goes away when he sees the tefillin. There was a beautiful picture of a bunch of soldiers praying in the morning with tefillin on their heads. I am sure that if the enemy saw that picture, the enemy would have some fear coming up in their hearts, and well, they should. So it's a spiritual battle. Now, Not all of the Jewish people are observant at this point in time, so that's also a battle we should fight, the battle of kiruv, of bringing people close, of education. But these parts of this battle are crucial for defeating the anti-Semite. There is one other element which is relevant to our current war. The army gives different names to the military operations that they undertake. I don't really care for the current name. I don't remember what it is, something about swords of iron or something like that. I would suggest Mechiat Amalek, the destruction of Amalek. We have to designate this enemy as Amalek. And why so? What's the deal with Amalek? Amalek was the ancient anti-Semitic nation that we were commanded to eliminate. Now, it's an important proviso I must make, and that is when we are fighting Amalek at the instruction of a prophet, like Samuel the prophet, so then we are indeed commanded to wipe them out entirely, everybody with no exceptions, even the children. But if there is no prophet, so then the law would follow the opinion of King Saul, which means that we are supposed to just fight against those who are actively Amalekites. What does it mean, actively Amalekites? Those who commit acts of cruelty and hatred against the Jews, as we saw on Simchat Torah. Those people designated themselves, as Amalekites. But it includes also all those who do not separate from them, all those who support them and help them and cheer them on. They are all Amalekites, and there is no compromise. It's an anti-Semite. You cannot make any compromise. If you do, it won't make a difference. Gor nicht vet helfen is Yiddish saying, nothing helps. And when we fight against Amalek, then we know that God is with us. How do we know? Because the Torah says so. At the end of the chapter of Bishalach, when we fought against the Amalekites, the section there ends with the following phrase, Milchama la Hashem ba'Amalek midor dor. It is the fight of God with Amalek from generation to generation. When we fight against Amalek and know we are fighting against Amalek, God is already fighting that fight from generation to generation, which means now. And we are joining together with him. So therefore may Hashem be with all of our nation, with all of our soldiers, and may we see the complete victory that we need to have. And therefore, by building and digging and continuing to plant physically and spiritually, we will defeat the anti-Semites. Shavua Tov.